Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. Today we are playing my favourite deck in Legacy, which is a deck I put a lot of work into, and that is Green-Black Turbodepths. The aim of the game here, we have Dark Depths, we remove the counters with Hexmage, we get a 20/20. We make a copy with Thespian Stage, we get a 20/20. We turn 20/20 sideways, our opponent dies. We've got a bunch of tutor effects to make that happen, so this can tutor into our hand, this tutors into play land-wise. We've got some fast mana to power it out, so Spirit Guides and Lotus Petals. We've got Hand Disruption in Duress and Thoughtseize. We've got Protection in the form of Not of This World. And we've got Pithing Needles and Disruptor Flute here too. Once upon a time to smooth out some draws, and then a few silver bullets in our land like Bojuka Bog, Boseiju, Ghost Quarter, Sejiri Steppe. This is a deck I play a lot on the channel. If you want more information about it, either look up some of my other videos or go to my Patreon where I have a guide to the deck. It is over 50 pages long and gets updated every month. So what are we doing today that is slightly different to normal? Well, we have Duress over Inquisition, which is something I've been leaning towards a lot lately, because Duress allows us to attack the Beanstalk decks a bit more because we can hit things like Leyline Binding. This doesn't hit Brazen Borrow, which is the one downside to this compared to Inquisition of Kozilek. The other change we have is a Disruptor Flute in the main deck. So this is just a generic card. Like, it's not as good as Pithing Needle, you know, it's not as good as Not of This World or whatever. It's not as good as other stuff, but it's flexible. So depending on what we're playing against, and the meta is still kind of in flux right now, this means that we can sort of, you know, name Source of Plowshares and make it cost 4 mana. That's perfectly fine to do. 2 mana is obviously a lot for our deck because we're trying to combo off on turn 2 or 3, which usually uses all of our mana. But I think just having this flexible answer is going to give us a little bit more leeway against some of the matchups where our opponent's decks are a little bit harder to predict what's happening sometimes. So we can hold this up and we can flash it in response to whatever they play. So, you know, they play a Knight or a White to the Reliquary, we can, you know, flash this in. We can stop Caracas and Wasteland as well. It can just be like another Pithing Needle as well as making things cost more. So I think the flexibility on this is something that I like to have at the moment. When the format becomes a little bit more solved than it is now, then we end up getting to sort of fine-tune our protection pieces. Sideboard-wise, we also have a Disruptor Flute in the sideboard over the Boseiju that I was running before. So this does make our Once Upon a Time slightly worse because we have less hits and we don't have like another sideboard hit that we can have here like the Boseiju. We're only running 2 Once Upon a Time at the moment. I sort of ebb and flow between 2 and 3. But I think today we're going to try the 2 out with the Disruptor Flute. Other sideboard cards are pretty much the same as they've always been. We've got some Leylines for all the Ouphe decks. We've got some Sylvan Safekeeper to protect us from white removal. Another Not of This World for the same reasons. Collector Ouphe to shut down some scary artifact combo decks. And then Abrupt Decay, which answers all the problems we could possibly imagine. Whether that's Mages of the Moon, Opposition Agent, Harbinger of the Seas, Ensnaring Bridge, a whole bunch of things. And that, lovely people, is the deck tag. Please remember to like and subscribe, and let's just get making some 2020s. The lovely people over at 3for1 Trading are doing a spring sale from May 7th to May 12th. Get 5% off of all orders over $500 with free worldwide shipping by using the code SPRINGSALE25. Their support helps make this channel viable for me, so support them by clicking the link in the description of this video to browse their enormous inventory and find whatever you need for your Magic collection. We've got a bit of a weird hand here. So we can go use both of our pieces of fast mana and cast a Sylvan Scrying. We don't have a Yawgmoth to get though, which means the second Sylvan Scrying is going to be harder to cast. We can go and get a Bayou, but then we still need to find another land. This is like really close to being what I want. I guess we get turn 1 Sylvan Scrying plus Duress, and then we just need to find another mana source. I will keep this one. It's a bit of an awkward one, but we have double tutor, and we already have one of our combo pieces, so we get to tutor for a little bit of disruption first. Sorry, I mean we get to tutor and then cast a bit of disruption first. Mishra's Bauble, but they're not cracking it. Intriguing. So the game can fall apart here with this Sylvan Scrying. This is a card that is worth countering, just on the face of it as well. Alright, we go and get our Bayou. We are exposing ourselves to Wasteland by doing it this way, but that is just what we have to take. Because we want to be able to cast this Duress, we also want to be able to cast this Sylvan Scrying. Fail Push, Barrow Both, Bowmasters. Okay, so we're on some sort of mono-black looking deck. We'll take the Fail Push, that's irrelevant to what we're doing. Let's hope they don't draw a Wasteland. So the Mishra's Ball will make sense now. This is to pump Stalactite Stalkers. There's been a few mono-black decks that just sort of like, you know, Guise, Hand Disruption, and Removal that have been doing all right in challenges. I think it's got a couple of top 8 since Dragonstorm came out. So we need to find another land. So I guess the best draw for us now is Thespian Stage. That's a pretty good one. Thoughtseize. So we're going to lose our Sylvan Scrying here. We're not under a lot of pressure yet. The lifelink on Barragoyf is relevant because this means they can gain enough life to go over the top of what we're doing. So we don't kill them in one hit, which gives them way more turns to try and answer our friend. Okay, Dark Depths, here you come. Maybe they draw a wasteland and spend a turn hitting the depths. Maybe they spend 2 turns hitting the depths with different wastelands instead of deploying threats. That would actually be alright because we have the 3rd depths. We just need a little bit more time to get where we're trying to go here. It was unfortunate for us that they drew that Thoughtseize right then. But our deck is very much dedicated to doing this one thing. So our draws are going to push us towards comboing with this relatively quickly. Now, yeah, we can just draw a bunch of land or whatever. But even that's not too bad for us. Alright, so there is the Barragoyf. It's a 4-5. So the first hit doesn't actually change the clock for us. The question is, are we Thoughtseizing here? I think the 2 life that we spend here is going to be worth it. Okay, another Barragoyf. Let's get that out of the mix. Okay. This does give them a slightly bigger Barragoyf by doing that. But it stops them having 2 Barragoyfs. This does change the clock in terms of Barragoyf hitting us. Because if it was hitting us for 4, we could have taken 5. We could have taken 4 hits, then died. Now we die on the 4th hit. Although the Bowmasters changes that maths anyway, so I don't think it's worth worrying about that. Another Goyf. Yeah, just a casual 5-6. Right, they've got us on a pretty quick clock now. Doesn't look like this hand is going to quite come together as we wanted it to. They also got a Stalactite Stalker back. And the Barragoyf triggers Descend because it puts cards in your graveyard, so they can play the Stalker and it will grow here. So we're looking at 12 damage, plus the 1 from the Bowmasters is lethal. So they have us dead next turn. I think they've got us here. What is our solution to all this nonsense in front of us? If we draw... No, crop rotation is not going to help us either. I think we're just stone cold dead here. Thoughtseize, we already know the card in their hands. There's no point getting extra information, and we're dead to this Bowmaster. Okay. Not the ideal one for us. So I would like some Abrupt Decays. We do not require Not of This World. So our opponent is going to be trying to make us sacrifice our creatures, not trying to target them. So the Abrupt Decays, killing things like an opposition agent is going to be quite good here. They do have wastelands in their decks. We don't need the Pithing Needles. I think just 3 Abrupt Decays is enough. Do we want the Bojuka Bog? Probably not. So we can take the Bojuka Bog and bring in this Abrupt Decay. So the plan is that we should generally race the Barragoyf anyway. So let's try this build. I don't believe they're playing Helm or anything like that. It is just like a mid-rangey beatdown deck. A lot like the one that I played at the Eternal Legacy Masters a couple of years ago, whenever it was. Sort of, I was part of the several people who were innovating with that deck and playing it online at the time. It was very, very good into Blue-Black Scam at the time. Obviously, we're living in a different world now, but it seems to have some pretty solid matchups still. Okay, this is pretty good. Keep this. We get to Thoughtseize into turn 3 Dark Depths combo. Happy about how this looks. Let's see what we need to be naming with this Disruptor Flute as well. No wasteland in their opening hand, that's good. Plague Engineer, Duress. None of these cards actually stop us. Plague Engineer maybe buys them 1 turn, but their hand is kind of slow. If they Duress us, what are they going to take here? If they Thoughtseize us, then the Plague Engineer doesn't matter anyway. So I guess we just take the Barragoyf, because that's the card that I'm most annoyed with, just generally speaking, because that can just gain life and be irritating. Do I want to play out this Lotus Petal, or do I want to give our opponent the opportunity to Duress it? I would like our opponent to have the opportunity to Duress it and make a mistake. I don't think they will Duress this. So here comes the Thoughtseize, and there's the Swamp. So we're going to lose probably the Disruptor Flute or the Sylvan Scrying. But we've given our opponent the option of taking the Lotus Petal and taking away green mana from us. Because they might take this because it kind of feels like taking the Lotus Petal and the Sylvan Scrying. But we don't need those cards because we just have the win in hand. So Shoulder's Edict is probably the card that we're... It's Shoulder's Edict or Wasteland, the things we name with the Disruptor Flute if we get to keep it. If they take the Disruptor Flute, we don't have to worry about what we're naming. Which is kind of nice in its own way. Right, I took Sylvan Scrying. I'm going to play out 2 Lotus Petals. Do I think they have like something like a Liliana of the Veil? Maybe. I think we just play this out and we name Wasteland here. We shut that down. So Leyline of the Veil could plus and make us discard the Thespian stage. So maybe we're supposed to keep one Lotus Petal in hand, but that would need our opponent had to draw a piece of mana acceleration, like a Dark Ritual and the Leyline on the 2 draws that we didn't see. So now our opponent is in check, where if they ever tap out super low, then we know that we can just kill them. A Thoughtseize, you say. Okay, I'm happy to Thoughtseize my opponent one more time. They have 2 Shoulder's Edicts. Okay, understood. So now we're in that little check stage that I mentioned, where if our opponent ever taps so they can't cast the Shoulder's Edict, then we just make the guy. But they just have to keep all their mana up until we draw a discard spell. A Ghost Quarter. I'll play that one out. And I'll pass here. So if they draw a land, that's really good for them, because that gives them the ability to play Doughty Voidwalker and Shoulder's Edict here. We're obviously giving them black mana through our Urborg. A Thoughtseize. Okay, here we go. I will take your Shoulder's Edict, please. So now we can just make a 20/20 at our leisure and bash our opponent. They probably have a second Surveil land. No second Surveil land. They're just thinning their deck because they need to find something, and the like minuscule percentage is better than 0 there. All right, and they're scooping it up because they know we're going to go for it that turn. Okay, I like how we sideboarded here. I don't think maybe another Disruptor Flute. Maybe that's slightly better than one of the Abrupt Decays because we could just name Shoulder's Edict and mess with our opponent. Let's try this out. This hand that we have here requires us to draw a Dark Depths. It's much easier drawing the other half because we have more copies of the other half because of Hexmage. We mulligan because we can't win without a Dark Depths, basically. Now, the old double Once Upon a Time hand. I don't think this is good enough because even if we Once Upon a Time into one of our combo pieces, we're still another combo piece behind. Yes, the protection is nice and the disruption is nice. Am I convincing myself now? This kind of needs to find us a black-green source. But then we need to then rotate and something else. I think we should just mulligan this. We are exposing ourselves a lot to hand disruption here. Yikes. Do we go to 4? Let me go to 4. Okay, we keep this. So we keep a Dark Depths, a Thespian stage, a Verdant Catacombs. So we're probably getting rid of this and this. And I guess we keep the Sylvan Scrying. This way we can go and find that other mana source we need. A Mishra's Bauble. Understood. So keeping some sort of crop rotation, it helps against wastelands, but that's fine. So I will deploy this. And we don't need to Sylvan Scrying yet. That's not true. We probably should have Sylvan Scrying because that way we're not losing anything if our opponent Thoughtseizes us. Alright, I decided not to do that anyway. A Duress. So what is the play here? I guess we go and get a Bayou here. This can tempt our opponent into making a mistake by wastelanding our Bayou. What do you have over there, opponent? Inquisition of Kozilek, Shoulder's Edict, and some other stuff. So we take the Shoulder's Edict, because that's the card that we care about. And then I deploy the Thespian stage. And then I Sylvan Scrying for a Thespian stage here. I think that's the correct play. We don't want to get an Urborg in this situation. So our hand is discard proof now. This also means that we can then play the Thespian stage, copy their wasteland, and then our opponent has to like either wasteland in response or just kind of get ruined. A crop rotation is also not the worst, is it? Let's play a Thespian stage and we'll pass. Alright, so we get a wasteland here. And then our crop rotation gets us into the combo next turn. So I think we're just playing around wasteland here. So I play this Dark Depths out. Then I wasteland. Our opponent has to wasteland in response. We crop rotate and we're fine. We go and get ourselves an Urborg. We make a 20/20. So now we're covered from wasteland. Our opponent doesn't have the mana to play an Edict. And then this just crashes through for lethal. Alright, pretty nice little round there. I understand why our opponent kept their hand. Obviously it's a little bit awkward keeping the wasteland like that. And then not having the mana. But we do play Urborg some of the time as well. And like a single land starts unlocking their hand in a big way as well. It is a bit unfortunate for our opponent, but this matchup feels like it's pretty good for us anyway. They just have the Edicts and Wastelands. So it's 2 very obvious things and we can kind of ignore the rest of their deck in a lot of ways. I think not having the Troll of Khazad-dûm definitely hurts this deck a bit. Where it used to have that, then keeping hands like that would just mean that you have even more ways of getting into your first land as well. Anyway, on to round 2. This opening hand does not have access to a Dark Depths, so we're going to throw this one back in the deck. We have a Dark Depths, we have a Tutor, we have some Disruption. I like this one quite a lot. I think we throw back the Disruptor Flute this time. We need the 2 mana sources to make the Sylvan Scrying happen. Yeah, this makes sense. Pithing Needle on Wasteland is obviously a lot more mana efficient. Arena of Glory. Okay, so we're probably doing some Painted Servant stuff over there. That's kind of what this makes me think. Another Pithing Needle, not necessarily bad, but also not really what I want either. So we're getting black source off both these in case we draw a Hexmage, because then we just have more chances of hitting the combo. Okay, so we do have this Painted Servant stuff going on. Phyrexian Dragon Engine, a couple of Spirit Guides. Intriguing. I think we're going to take the Painted Servant, and then we're going to Pithing Needle the Goblin Engineer next turn. And that should be a reasonably good spot for us to be in. Okay, they have a mountain. So there's no point in them giving this haste. So just going to play it out regularly. Yep, there's the first Engineer. What are you going to pull out of your deck? Possibly the Grindstone, because they already have the Card Advantage engine there. A Soul Guide Lantern. Okay, reasonable given what we've shown them so far. An Urborg. I like the Urborg quite a lot here. Like Pithing Needle. Get this name in Goblin Engineer. What do I name with the second Pithing Needle here? I could name Goblin Welder. I could name Grindstone. I think I'm going to put this on Grindstone. This is a mana efficient turn for us. I could name the One Ring. I think I'm going to name Grindstone. And I think we can probably beat the One Ring. It's just getting blown out by the Grindstone. But our opponent is a long way from doing that. So if we draw Crop Rotation or Vampire Hexmage, we can go next turn. Okay, Sylvan Spirit Guide is exiled. We're getting something hasty. Is this just going to be the Dragon Engine? It is. Okay, so we're going to get clocked for 5 this turn. So there's a 4-turn clock our opponent is representing. We will kill our opponent before that matters. But they can obviously have other stuff to interact with us. Does this change anything for us right now? I don't believe it does. Sylvan Scrying, go and get the Thespian stage. Play out the Thespian stage. And I'll play out this Lotus Petal as well to represent something shenanigansy. So we take 5 this turn, and then next turn we have a 20-20, and then we win the game. Our opponent's deck does not really interact with 20-20s. The only way that they tend to interact with what we're doing is Painted Servant and then Red Blasting our lands. So they should probably play out this Engineer because that is lethal damage. But it's not going to get through our Dark Depths. A Pithing Needle. What possible things could I be worried about that our opponent could play? The One Ring. Khan the Great Creator, I guess, is probably the most scary thing they might have. And then they have an attack for 1 this turn because we can block the Dragon Engine, which I will do because our opponent's deck probably has Lightning Bolts in. Our opponent plays a Painter this turn, then we make it in response so they can't Pyroblast our thing because they can't Pyroblast Marit Lage because Marit Lage is indestructible. I don't know if our opponent is on a Khan build. They're not that common, but we'll see what our opponent's up to here. Lava Spur Boots with 1 mana up. Okay, if you're just equipping a Lava Spur Boots, this is fine. I'll click the correct one here. It's been a long time since I've misclicked and got the wrong land there, but it happens every once in a while when you're talking too much. Right, so let's just gobble this up. We take 2. We're not dead to Sylvan Spirit Guide Lightning Bolt here. And we know they can't have double Sylvan Spirit Guide Lightning Bolt because they have the Engineer in hand. Lightning Bolt to our dome. And then they're scooping. Yeah, okay. So we correctly worked out what was going on there. So this is the matchup where we have a lot of tools that are good. Collector Ouphes and Abrupt Decays are very much the order of the day here. Do not require Not of This World. Bojuka Bog sometimes is useful. We don't actually need the Sejiri Steppe, so that can come out. Our hand disruption is not that interesting either. Like, it's fine, don't get me wrong, it's fine, but it's not as good as all the other tools we have. So bringing in things like this is just better for us. We want the Ghost Quarter to hit a Saga. We've got the Bojuka Bog. I don't think we need the Sejiri Steppe. The only thing that they might have is Dead and Gone, but I haven't seen one of those out of the paint deck for a little while, so I'm not going to respect that. We combo on turn 2 here. That seems reasonable. Blood Moon is a card our opponent can have. We can play around Blood Moon. A Goblin Engineer. What is this going to do? Probably fetch Ensnaring Bridge. Would quite like to draw a Pithing Needle this turn. Ensnaring Bridge, sure. A Pithing Needle or an Abrupt Decay. Either of those would be nice. A Thespian Stage. That is not one of the two cards I just asked for. Okay, so I'll play out the Thespian Stage. I don't believe I need to play this Lotus Petal out. We obviously can tutor for the Boseiju as well. We're going to need more mana to do that. We kind of want to get our 2020 in before the Saga pops. A Painter's Servant, sure. Alright, they might have us here. They're going for a turn 3 kill, which is pretty good. A Thoughtseize. That doesn't actually help with our current problem. So we'll play this out and we'll play out a Lotus Petal. So our opponent can blast our stuff as well. I think our opponent wins this one. Are they grindstoning us this turn? Generally speaking, Mono Red Painter is a matchup that I have found to be in the sort of 70 to 80% win rate. It's a very good one. It doesn't mean they can't beat you though. They definitely have lines that work. Like a turn 3 combo is pretty good. And we didn't draw any of our disruptive elements really. But by the time we had the Thoughtseize, it was already too late. Alright, they're not getting a Grindstone here. That is interesting. Magus of the Moon. Okay, so here is our plan. We make a 2020 now. And then we need to get rid of this Ensnaring Bridge. Unfortunately, we had to use all of our mana for that, so we don't have a lot of mana to get towards it. That is certainly one of the pieces I would like to have towards it. So I'll play this one out. And I'll play out the Verdant Catacombs. It doesn't really matter here. We can't attack because of the Ensnaring Bridge. How long are we going to sit here like this? If we get given enough time, then we can just Sylvan Scrying for Boseiju and take the Ensnaring Bridge out at the right time. Okay, that's a nice one to have access to as well. I will deploy this Thespian Stage. Okay, they're getting a Lotus Petal back over the Painter. A Lava Spare Boots, sure. I'm going to spend a few turns looking at each other, I think, here. A Sylvan Scrying, you say. This can go and get us a green source at the cost of our green source, which then goes and gets us a Boseiju. I think that's the correct thing to do here. So I can either go and get the black source to turn on the Abrupt Decay, or I can go and get the Boseiju. I think I'm just going to turn on my mana here, because this makes other draws better as well. We just need to get through this Ensnaring Bridge. A little bit tricky with the Goblin Engineer hanging around. A Painter's Servant, sure. They're going to Red Blast my forest. Disruptor Flute. That is a pretty excellent draw, as it turns out. So we Disruptor Flute, naming Goblin Engineer. And then we can Abrupt Decay this Ensnaring Bridge and they can't do anything about it. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. That is okay with me. What is the one card in our opponent's hand? Let's flash in Disruptor Flute, please. Goblin Engineer. Let's block this Ensnaring Bridge. So our opponent pretty much had all the things they really wanted there. And it still didn't go to plan. I think the correct play for them was actually to just try and combo us. But they had to fetch the Mox Opal because they're a little bit shy on mana. But yeah, this matchup is very good. Okay, let's go to round 3. For the best Eternal experience this summer, check out Eternal Mania in Hasselt, Belgium from August 8th to 10th. Aside from hosting the European Legacy Masters, they have a whole host of other tournaments from team trios to old school and pre-modern. I will be there playing Legacy and hanging out as a special guest. This will also be the first event that I'll be giving out my own special Marit Lage tokens, so why not come down to enjoy an awesome weekend run by one of the best TOs in Europe. This hand requires a piece of green mana, and then we can go. We have double pieces of disruption and protection. I think I'm going to keep this. Green mana is something that we are relatively odds on to draw because all of our fast mana is green because we got Spirit Guides. So I like the situation we're in here. Being able to punch through to make sure that we can resolve our crop rotation is also a big deal. A Dark Depths, you say? Well, well, well. There's also that draw. Okay, Thoughtseize, let's get our opponent here. Are we on tempo? Are we on combo? A Daze. Sure. So if they wasteland our Urborg, that does suck a little bit for us. Not a wasteland. Excellent. This suggests my opponent is probably somewhere in the combo ballpark. That would be my guess here. I would have loved that to have been a piece of fast mana, but it was not. What is the play? I think if they really, really didn't want to get Thoughtseize, we should probably Duress them here. A Brainstorm to hide cards is pretty solid. This does feel like combo play patterns because they're clearly trying to protect something rather than just have, you know, just generically okay cards like a tempo deck does. So they have particular A plus Bs is my guess. Maybe not. Tameo, Bauble, Daze. Do I care about any of these things? The Wasteland is a little bit annoying for us, I won't lie. I guess I take the Daze because that's going to possibly impact us when the Wastelands come down. So it's probably going to be Tameo Wasteland this turn. But if they don't play the Wasteland, then we get to Disruptor Flute. There is the Wasteland. There is the Tameo. They should just hit our Urborg here. They obviously don't know that. Green source would be nice. Not a green source. Okay. So we can play out the Dark Depths. I kind of want to play this Disruptor Flute. This isn't a round of days, but I don't want to expose our Dark Depths to the Wasteland, because this is the harder part of our combo to find. Now, Wastelanding the wrong land, that's beautiful for us. Which was Bauble. We'll name Wasteland. And then I will deploy a Dark Depths. We could have deployed the Sejiri Steppe, but we might be using the Sejiri Steppe to go through a blue blocker. Dragon's Red Channeler, we don't care about this. So blue-red tempo is a matchup that our deck is very well suited to play into. There is a Mr. Rainforest that we knew about. They don't like the card on top, so they're baubbling it away. Sorry, they're shuffling after the bauble, sorry. Not baubbling it away. I would not mind another piece of mana here. Not the one I wanted, but we can play around a daze by doing it like this, and that's worthwhile to me. Okay. And they just scoop into that. Excellent. Okay, so this is a matchup that I enjoy playing, so that's nice. Having Duress instead of Inquisitions does hurt a little bit in this matchup. Bojuka Bog is not necessarily a card we need a great deal of. Right, so we can get rid of these. We can add in another Disruptor Flute and a couple of Abrupt Decays. Or do I want this, not this world? Should I take a not of this world? Because that way we can play around the Brazen Borrower a bit more easily. You don't have to do a lot of stuff to make this matchup work because it's already very good for us anyway. Unless they've randomly got some white cards I don't know about in their deck. So this does not have access to a Dark Depth, so we cannot keep this hand. This does have some access, but there are some real costs involved with keeping a hand that looks like this. Crop Rotation gets countered pretty easily. I think we can do better than this on 5. Okay. I will keep this. So this is our combo here. We have a Thoughtseize, which we're going to need to check that the coast is clear. Does that mean we're getting rid of the Boseiju, or we're getting rid of the Not of This World? I think it's the Not of This World. Oh wait, we have to get rid of both, don't we, actually, because I forgot we're on 5. Okay. I'll get rid of the Boseiju over the Verdant Catacombs, just because this insulates us against Wasteland a little more. I'm not feeling great on 5 here. This isn't, like, there's a lot of absolute banger 5-card hands that our deck can produce. This is not one of them. This is a playable hand. Against our opponent's 7... not feeling special. A Ponder, at least they're not putting pressure straight away, so we're going to have more turns to draw cards that we can thread together to make ourselves a 20/20. A Vampire Hexmage. I think this has to be... does it have to be a Bayou, or it can be a Swamp? If we Swamp and Thoughtseize, it's going to make it harder for us to draw. I think... is this what they're going to Wasteland? I don't know. Right, I'm going to get a Thoughtseize off of a Swamp here. That's an interesting call. We have the green source in hand, but it's a one-shot. But we only have one green spell anyway. If they daze this... alright, they're Force of Willing this. That suggests to me that our opponent has a Brazen Borrower in hand. That would be a high enough value card that they would want to protect it. Steam Vents. Haven't seen one of those since Thundering Falls got printed. Okay. We're getting some steel cutting action here. So they've got a clock. Are they going to crack the bauble, or are they saving it for something else? They're cracking the bauble. Crop Rotation. This is not the one. A Lotus Petal, you say. Alright, let's go for a Vampire Hexmage. What interaction do you have for this? They used a Force of Will earlier, which suggests they didn't have a daze at the time. Am I paying for this daze? I think I am. That is our only green source. But I don't believe our opponent has a lot of action left. Alright, they've got another daze. Okay, so this is the end of their action. Okay, so we need to draw like a Bayou. That gets us there, really. It takes a couple of turns, but it does get us there. Now our opponent can obviously draw wastelands and things, and that's not going to be ideal for us. They've got 3 power in play. They can obviously augment this quite easily. Am I playing this out? I think I am. It can roadblock their aggro. I doubt they have lightning bolts in their deck at this point anyway. So this doesn't have first strike, does it? No, trample and haste. Red and blue. A braid. Yeah, that's annoying. I understand why they have that, because they can blow up the Pithing Needles, naming the wasteland. Okay, so we're still not a million miles away from where we need to be. We just need a green mana, and then we get to win. But the clock is pretty scary over there. So we have like 1 turn to draw what we need, I think. A green source. They're going to counter this to take us off of green mana. No. So we're going to do this in our opponent's upkeep, I believe. That way we play around wasteland. Do you have a Force of Will here? We can pay for days. They do have a second Force of Will, pitching blue card. And that gives them the prowess to kill us as well. But they're going to put us to 1 anyway, and we're probably dead. Okay, I still like how we've sideboarded here. I think this matchup is just pretty good. A lot had to go wrong. We mulled to 5. Our opponent had double Force of Will and a Braid. And the double days. Like, there's a lot of things our opponent had to have to make that game work. This hand does not play, so we have to send this back. Yeah, this is the turn 2 with some disruption. I think we'd probably throw back the forest here. I think this is a Bayou. Just gives us the most options moving forward. I don't believe this is where our opponent fights with wastelands and stuff. Okay, Duress, be good to me. Ponder, Brainstorm. They have a Brazen Borrower and a Wasteland. I'm going to take the Brainstorm here, I think. This not being a Thoughtseize is really jamming us up there. There is just a Wasteland played out, sure. Alright, we're going to Sylvan Scrying this turn. That way we can use this crop rotation to protect against the Brazen Borrower. We also have the ability to use this crop rotation to go and get a Ghost Quarter to force action on the Wasteland. So hopefully this crop rotation will just cover whatever our opponent does. Volcanic Island into Ponder here, yeah. So we can play the Hexmage and then get the Dark Depths in. We need the Hexmage to resolve before we play the Dark Depths. They did not shuffle off that Ponder. Would love to have a little bit of hand disruption here. Okay, we have some hand disruption here. Let's fire this off. I'd have liked to have a Thoughtseize, to be honest with you, but beggars and choosers and all that jazz. I guess we take the Ponder here. We don't care about the Surgical for now. It just means that we have to win with the first guy we make. Volcanic Island, Dragon's Rage Channeler, yep. This is just a... It's just got 2. Okay, they drew another Ponder. Sure. Bidding off a land, so now they've got 3 types. But they always had access to land with the Wasteland. Obviously, it's better keeping this in play to interact with us. I should have been more specific about the hand disruption I wanted. They shuffled off that Ponder. A Boseiju. That is a relatively handy one to have. So if we Boseiju this, our opponent does just mess us up with it, though. What is the way forward here? So if we Boseiju this, they waste down one of our Bayous. And that is really irritating. So we probably have to play out the Hexmage first. And then we can use the Boseiju once it's already in play, because then we don't care about one of these getting wastelanded. And then we have the ability to crop rotate and protect our guy. There's lots of wheels within wheels going on here, because we know what we're having to go around. A lightning bolt targeting this. Oh, that's so frustrating. They can't have many lightning bolts left in their deck. Like, they're still not putting us under a lot of pressure. We know what's in their hand at this point, so that was something they had to rip off. Okay. So, what is the deal here? If we play out the Lotus Petal, if we play out the Dark Depths, we can then crop rotate. If we Boseiju this away, we have to do that next turn, I think, don't we? Okay. Let's just work on beating this Brazen Borrower. So we can Boseiju this one, and then we're still trying... Oh, another Wasteland. Okay, well, we have 6 Pithing Needle effects in our deck. And if they Brazen Borrower to bounce one of them, we can probably just win in response. A Disruptor Flute. Can we win in response like this? If we play out the Boseiju, then we don't have our land in play anyway. So if we play out the Boseiju here, we can't get the Dark Depths in. We play out the Dark Depths, we have 2 mana to activate the Dark Depths here, but then we also need to go and get the card. So I think we are playing our Boseiju out, and then next turn we can go 2 mana for Disruptor Flute, and then we have these 2 mana to activate. That still doesn't work. We can Disruptor Flute in a second, to name the Wasteland, but they're going to smash both of our things down, which is a bit on the awkward side, isn't it? Alright, I think we need to do this now. They could take out both of our Bayous here. Oh wow, they didn't do anything. That is interesting. That is also an interesting draw. Let's cast a Pithing Needle. Surgical Extraction targeting Vampire Hexmage. Okay, so this tells them what they need to play against. So we need to find one of our 4 Thoughtseizes or one of our 4 Not of This World. Or another crop rotation, or Sejiri Steppe, or Thespian Stage. That's kind of what we're looking at here. So looking at our hand, they shouldn't Brazen Borrow with this Disruptor Flute and fire off Wastelands. They should hold this Brazen Borrow and use that as their way to beat our Marit Lage token. So it's going to be a case of, can we draw into the answer to Brazen Borrower before they kill us? It's pretty much how this game's going to go. The difference between Duress and Inquisition is costing us in this particular match. Because we would have won this game already if we'd have had Inquisition instead of Duress. Right, so we name Wasteland with this as well. I believe we do play out the Dark Depths here. We also don't have to worry about that Surgical Extraction anymore, removing all of our Dark Depths. Not that it's a particularly good play anyway, because normally the first one gets it done, but it just means that we have got that little bit, extra bit of safety net to rely on. Brainstorm, sure. I imagine that's the card they left on top. Still haven't got Delirium, so we've got a lot of turns at the current moment in time. Flooded Strand. So they definitely have this Brazen Borrower in hand. There's no reason they would get rid of that. Meltdown could be kind of annoying here. I wish I hadn't said that, because that means they're going to have it. Because that's how Magic the Gathering works sometimes. So now they've found a way of hitting us for 3 damage. The clock has changed considerably. Thoughtseize. Well, this is kind of the perfect card that we've been looking for. Fire that bad boy off. They're casting Brazen Borrower just as a guy. That is not where our opponent wants to be. Okay, we take Force of Will and leave them with Polluted Delta. This means it's an opportune time to crop rotate and get our Thespian Stage here. And we get to devour this Dragon's Rage Channeler this turn. They don't have a Brazen Borrower, otherwise we would bounce this before blocks. So they've got a chump blocking Brazen Borrower. We're going to draw the Sejiri Steppe. No. Okay. Right, we attack our opponent once. The creature goes under the bus. They're keeping this card in hand for the purposes of Brainstorm. Do we get there? Oh no. The dreaded blue and the one. A braid on our thing. Okay, that doesn't matter. We got the GGs in chat. Okay. So our opponent had so many things there. They had the double Wasteland. They had the Borrower that we couldn't hit because we had Duresses. They had a Surgical Extraction, so we had to make sure that we won off the first one. They had the Lightning Bolt for the Vampire Hexmage, but still we grind through them. This is just a very good matchup for the deck and one of the reasons to play it. And tempo decks are one of the most prevalent archetypes in Legacy right now, which is why I think Depths is in a pretty reasonable spot. Let's go to round number 4. I don't like this one. We don't have guaranteed access. Well, we do have access, I suppose, because we have the crop rotation. What do I feel about this one? So this can find us either half of our combo. So we do have access to Dark Depths. We have a way of beating Wasteland. We have Hand Disruption. I think I'm going to keep this. I don't like it very much, but I think it's okay. Flooded Strand. Okay. So possibly a good matchup to have a bunch of Hand Disruption in. Alright, can I have my free spell, please? A Thespian Stage is probably the way forwards here, isn't it? I think it's just Bayou here. And we'll fire in with the Thoughtseize. Let's hope our opponent doesn't want to get their hand mashed up a bit. They could Brainstorm and protect their hand here. They could Daze this, Spell Pierce, Minor Misstep it. There's a lot of options. A Brainstorm to protect their hand. Okay. They've seen the Thespian Stage that we had to reveal off the Once Upon a Time, so they do know roughly what they're looking for and what is worth protecting against our deck. Sometimes when you Duress without them having seen anything else, they don't know what sort of Duress deck that we are playing. So they sometimes will hide different things that maybe is something we can capitalize on because we're a relatively fringe deck in the format. What is Meringue River Regent? Draw 3 cards, then discard a card. Whenever this creature enters, return up to 2 other target non-land permanents to their owner's hand. Okay. I guess we take the Force so that we know we can resolve our crop rotation, because that's going to be a big deal. Polluted Delta, so no more information about our opponent's hand there. A Vampire Hexmage, you say. I'm going to play out this Verdant Catacombs, and I'm going to Thoughtseize my opponent again. They're cracking the Polluted Delta. We've got another Brainstorm going on. This could be some kind of reanimated deck. An Orcish Bowmasters. I do not care about Orcish Bowmasters. Orcish Bowmasters being in the format is actively great for our deck. I don't believe they're going to have a way of doing anything with this. Like, should we just take the weird card? I kind of just want to take the Ponder and then crop rotate right now, while we know the coast is clear. So an Urborg is a good draw, a piece of fast mana is a good draw. We can maybe make a crop rotation work as well. A Chandra. So we do have to be wary of Swords to Plowshares in this matchup. Some sort of big Esper deck. Meringue River Regent. Like, the reason they have this is because you can then put it in off of a Show and Tell to bounce an Omniscience, which is not the worst. Alright, I'll have a Thespian stage, and I will duress my opponent because we're not going to have the mana next turn to do it. So let's have one more look and see what you're working with. Mystic Sanctuary. So we can put something on top. Probably a Ponder. We're just going to go next turn and assume that it works for us. Oh wait, they can't put it on because they've got Swamp here. But this means they can dig next turn for an answer potentially. So Not of This World would be pretty much the best draw, I think. It's not a Not of This World, but it's also reasonable. Do we think our opponent has Prismatic Endings? Yes. They're more likely to have that than they are to have Wastelands in their 3-colour deck with basic lands in. So we're going to play around Prismatic Ending rather than anything else. Alright, again, we don't care about Orcish Bowmasters. You can pin me down, that's fine. You've got 1 card in hand, and one, well, I've got 2 cards in hand now, 1 mystery card, and then this dragon that doesn't do anything. I guess they draw 3 cards, then discard a card. That is a lot of cards to find a Swords to Plowshares. Alright, they're omening. So I think omen means it gets shuffled in when it resolves instead of going into the graveyard. Discarded a Thoughtseize. So they need to find White Source and Plow here. That is a Wasteland. I did not expect my opponent to have a Wasteland. That is genuinely very upsetting. Oh, they've made a mistake here, because we just do this in response now. What they should have done is waited, and then they can respond to us activating. So what we would have to do is try and go again. Should have waited, yeah. Yeah, our opponents realised their error here. Okay, so our opponent is playing some white cards. So I would like to not lose to the white cards. So let's put in Not of This World and Sylvan Safekeeper, Sylvan Safekeeper. We do not require Bojuka Bog for this matchup. Disruptor Flute is something I am not opposed to. I think it's better than a Pithing Needle here. I think we've seen the Wastelands. We need to keep the Pithing Needles, don't we? Awkward. We need the Ghost Quarter because we've seen the Wastelands. Once Upon a Time finds us the Safekeeper, which is kind of like a big deal. Are we just trimming on fast mana? I don't think so. Maybe we're just trimming on these. That feels a little bit awkward when we're boarding in the Safekeepers and boarding out the Once Upon a Times. It's just with the Disruptor Flute, there's kind of different metrics about how we're trying to navigate this one. Because we need the hand disruption to get through counter magic. Alright, we'll try it like this. We can always reappraise the situation for a game 3. We get to see a little bit more of our opponent's deck. It feels like they're sort of mid-rangey. This hand does not play for us, so we're going to be having a look at a new hand. I don't like this one either. We do have protection from Wasteland. This is real awkward. Okay, I think we're going to 4. Alright, this hand is pretty reasonable. So we're definitely getting rid of an Urborg. We don't need a second one of those. So that goes. So we're definitely keeping Urborg Dark Depths. That's obvious. I think we keep the Wasteland and we keep the Thoughtseize and the Pithing Needle, which means we have to get rid of these 2 cards. Meticulous Archive. So we're Urborg, Pithing Needle is our turn 1 play here, unless something changes with what we draw. Urborg, Pithing Needle. Now our opponent is likely to have things like Prismatic Ending in their deck. because they're 3 colours, so you get a lot more juice out of the prismatic ending than a 2-colour deck, so they can answer this. So they could answer this and immediately wasteland us. And it's within the realms of possibility here. If I want to play around a Daze, I guess I can... If I want to play around a Spell Pierce, I should play out the Dark Depths as well. Alright, let's Thoughtseize our opponent playing around Spell Pierce. Been seeing a lot more Spell Pierces lately, which is good. It's a card I enjoy a lot. Okay, Murktide Regent, Surgical Extraction, Plow Plow. I guess we take one of the plows. And then we're going to be waiting around for a little while until our opponent finds... So that they could always just take our Thoughtseize, just to put more cards in the graveyard to try and get towards Murktide Regent. But we're slow removing counters from Dark Depths next turn. Unless we draw Thespian Stage or Hexmage. Even then, the plow kind of scuppers our plans a little bit. We'll see what we draw and go from there. I'll play this one out and we'll start slow removing counters. I could just play the Spirit Guide here and just start beating down with it. That doesn't seem great. This should be a difficult matchup for us because they have Counter Magic, Wasteland and Plows. So they can kind of attack us on all 3 axes. Alright, removing the counters. 30 mana Dark Depths. Okay, we've got this. Now we have so much mana. I think I'm just going to cast this rubbish little guy. Because if the game just stays as it is, eventually this will force our opponent to have to act. If we have something like a Elvish Reclaimer, then we could just force the plow off of on that instead. But we have a different elf. We're not about doing Reclaimer stuff. Brainstorm is pretty much the best card our opponent could draw there because they've got some stinkers in their hand, like the Surgical. They need to put cards in their graveyard for the Murktide. The Wasteland obviously doesn't look great with the Pithing Needle, so if they find an answer to our Pithing Needle, they can keep the Wasteland, otherwise they can ship it. Just an absolutely excellent turn for our opponent here. They might have to Ferry as well, which can then bounce the Pithing Needle, but then it will die to the Spirit Guide, but they probably don't care about dying to the Spirit Guide. So they can now put a Murktide in play. It's not going to be in a massive Murktide, it's only going to be a 5, but they're going to have a clock. Okay. Thoughtseize. This doesn't actually change the clock. Do we fire it off now or not? We know there's a plow in our opponent's hand, so we know there's something we definitely want to hit anyway. So I think this Thoughtseize is worth it right now. Allows us to play around any sort of soft permission they might have later on. They've drawn another plow. Yeah, it's a bit yikes for us. Now, we did have to mulligan quite deep this time around. A few more cards would have helped a little bit. A crop rotation when we know they have forcible blue card is not ideal. But I guess we get to attack for 2 here. If they have a Bowmaster, then we're still dead to it anyway. If we drop a land, then they can hardcast a force. The Surgical Extraction means that if we crop rotate and lose our Marit Lage to this plow, then we never get to make another one, and we definitely can't win then. Blue, blue, blue. Harbinger of the Seas. That was not a thing I was expecting out of our opponent's deck. What do? We can gain 20 life and then never be able to win. I think we're just dead here. I'm just going to scoop it up and go to game 3. So, how do we feel about this Harbinger? Do we need some tools for the Harbinger? We could take out a couple of like Duress and add in a couple of Abrupt Decays just to kind of mitigate that a little bit. We should generally be winning before that comes down though. Okay, we'll try it with a couple of Decays in. Yeah, so our opponent has like a Blood Moon style effect, Wastelands, Source to Plowshares, and Counter Magic, as well as flying blockers too. Like there's so many ways our opponent interacts with us. This is going to be tough, but we're on the play. What does this hand do? Doesn't cast its spells. That's not really what I want my hand to do. What does this hand do? Dear, oh dear. So we would like crop rotate on 1 for Wasteland, for Black Source, to then Thoughtseize. This hand is no good. I think we need to mulligan. For mulligan. Alright. We'll keep this one. So we want this, this, this. I guess we're burying the Sylvan Scrying in the crop rotation. We play this one first because this allows us to drop the Pithing Needle. It also gives us a route to Hexmage combo on turn 2. There is a whole section in my guide about sequencing lands and what selection of cards changes the order of what you should play your lands out. We're going to see a Ponder here most likely. Could be a Tamiyo. The problem is we're not really testing our opponent's hand for counter magic. So they might be able to counter this Not of This World. What we would like to see is a Thoughtseize next turn, or just more Not of This World is also fine. The Thoughtseizes would make me feel a little bit safer. Right, Thespian stage, there you are. So we have to ask ourselves, is it getting better for us? And then we have to decide when we're comboing. We only have a small handful of hand disruption. I've only got 4 Thoughtseizes left in our deck. So we can't just sit there and go, okay, we'll wait and try and draw the Thoughtseizes. That's not going to be a solution. So here goes nothing, I suppose. So we are representing a Marit Lage. So our opponent has to keep 1 blue mana up at all times. Sorry, 1 white mana up at all times to at least represent Swords to Plowshares. They can block with a Tamiyo for a turn. But they're currently in a situation where maybe they need to block with a Tamiyo. So we'll see what they do, and maybe that will encourage us to go for it or not. We don't have green mana, so a lot of our lines to protect our guy are not on. So I think we're most likely going to try and go for it this turn cycle. And if they have it, they have it, and we lose, and that's magic, right? They've got to have removal spell and counter spell. That's certainly not outside the realms of possibility given our opponent's deck. Thoughtseize would be also kind of annoying because that would tip our hand of what we have to do. Because we wouldn't be able to protect our creature then. Okay, this suggests that they don't have an answer. Or they're playing extra cautiously. Alright, I don't think it gets better for us here. So we're just going to fire in with the 2020. If they have a removal spell, they should use it right there before we get to untap. So now we get to attack. They probably have to block here. Yes, okay, so they didn't have the removal spell. So we're going to hold up our mana to play around soft permission. They're going for a brainstorm here. This is going to flip the Tamiyo around. So another line they had available to them was to flip this round last turn and use the minus so that the Marit Lage can't kill them in one swing. And that way they get an activation of the Tamiyo. Can't give my creature trample, unfortunately. So we could remove this so we kill them next turn using our Hexmage. Alright, let's try and Not of This World dispel. There is a Force of Will. Alright, so we're going to gain a lot of life. Right, so now it's Vampire Hexmage time. We can nail this Tamiyo because we already have a piece to go with our Dark Depths. Now we're back trying to draw into the combo again. So our opponent could play a Harbinger this turn. It'll cut them off of white mana, but obviously as soon as we make a 2020, it's going to be a case where they have the white mana back again. Wasteland, we have that covered already with the Needle. Blue. Blue. Harbinger time. We're not really set up to deal with Harbinger with our current hand. But we have to mulligan pretty deep this round. It feels like a Harbinger of the Seas. Oh no, just a Murktide. So they've got a clock, but we are on 40 life. A Verdant Catacombs. Very happy to go and get a basic forest here. There is a threat that our opponent has shown us they have the Surgical Extraction, so they might be able to just strip out our Dark Depths at any given moment, which does not fill me with joy. And then the only matchup that looks worse than something like this is a Bant deck, which has Uro as well, because Uro puts them above 20 life, as well as giving them another land drop, which can hold up the plow. Like, Bant control is definitely our worst matchup, I would say. Although lands and Green-White Depths are pretty grim too. Kaito, Bane of Nightmares. Sure. Just gets to do a little bit of surveillance. So this also can tap down our guy if we make it when they have any sort of sorcery speed priority. They've got another play here. What is it going to be? Another Tamiyo. Thoughtseize. Ponder. Well, we're going to thin out our library and go and get ourselves a basic forest here. It's not going to take long for these to actually overcome the amount of health that we have right now. So we can turn our Thespian stage into a basic swamp here. So we have a basic of each kind. That opens us up to Abrupt Decay lines down the stretch. Alright, they're going to use the Kaito for cards rather than extra damage here. That's perfectly reasonable. Just get ourselves a basic swamp. Just protects us underneath some sort of Harbinger that could come down. So we can at least have the draw to the Abrupt Decay. Alright, we've drawn another Urborg. Not the one we wanted. We've got 2 more turns, and then we die in 2 more turns' time. Mystic Sanctuary, getting back Swords to Plowshares, most likely. Yep, just covering their bases there. Just pumps their Murktide Regent. It's not going to affect their clock. If they'd have been going upstairs with the Kaito, then they could have maybe got a turn quicker with that one. A Vampire Hexmage. Sure, let's have a Vampire Hexmage. This can answer Kaito or the Murktide Regent. So if we answer the Murktide Regent, we're still taking 6 a turn. It's pretty close to 7. Right, I think I'm just going to take out the Kaito. We're better answering Kaito than a lot of control decks are these days. It's because that's just a really horrible card for a lot of decks to answer. If you don't have red for Pyroblasts. This buys us one more turn where we might be able to put something in front of this Murktide. So a Hexmage that we would draw now would buy us an additional turn. Obviously I'd much rather have a 20/20. At the very least we gain a bunch of life. Alright Hexmage, here you are. Welcome back. This buys us an additional draw step. Because this will now take 3 turns to kill us unless they have another Murktide Regent. Not how I like to use my Vampire Hexmages. What I do like doing with them is removing cards from chalices and wrecking our opponent's decks. That's always quite fun. Especially when you have like an 8-cast person that puts a chalice on 1. And you go, actually, it's on 0 now. Enjoy. That brings me a lot of fun. But our situation is pretty dire here. We know that we have to beat a plow in our opponent's hand. So it's probably going to be a case of... Okay, so this one is going to be 4, 5, 6... No, 5. So they're both lethal. Okay, so even if we make Marit Lage right now, we still lose. That is not the ideal situation. But maybe our opponent makes an error. They gain us 20 life. That gives us a couple of draw steps to put together another one. But our opponent should just let us have a 20/20 and just swing and beat us. All we have to do is turn their guys sideways. But if they do plow, then maybe we can be okay here. If we just draw runner, then we're okay. Or actually, we probably end up in a very similar place again, don't we? We're not going to run out of time on the clock, so we may as well just go for it here. Yeah, so we block and then they just kill us. Unfortunate, but this is going to be a horrible matchup and difficult. They've got basically all the possible angles that you can interact with a Dark Depths deck. They have all of them. So ordinarily, most decks have 1 to 2 ways of doing it. This deck just has every way, and that is a bit of a problem. All right, we are 3-1, so there's a 4-1 available if we win the last round, so let's get to it. So this hand goes really hard, right? So this is a turn 2. If our opponents are a fan of the channel, they might know exactly what we're playing, because whenever I play on my regular account, it's always Turbodepths. Okay, what flavour? Okay, that's a Dark Ritual. That's a Barragoyf. Okay. I hope our turn 2 is going to be good enough here. What is the play? We play out Lotus Petal. We play out Lotus Petal. Play out Thespian Stage. So we get 20/20, but our opponent's going to be above 20 life. Cling to Dust. And the Swamp. Nice little Mirage Swamp. It's a really nice basic land art in the old Mirage set. Okay, so our opponent goes to 21. That is quite an important number here. I guess we'll have a Thespian Stage that we're going to sacrifice. Am I supposed to do it now to dodge Wasteland? I think so. Also dodges Opposition Agent if we do it now. Cling to Dust for our opponent. We don't have any lands. We can't do any Elvish Spirit Guide crop rotation nonsense. Please don't shoulder Zedge with me. I don't know how many they have in the main deck. A lot of decks I've seen lately are running Go for the Throat and Shoot the Sheriff in the main deck. Does our opponent want 3 life here is another question. Let's bash in with our little friend. I say little. It's enormous, but you know what I mean. Okay, so now we can Thoughtseize our opponent. Get more of an idea what they're working with. Shoulder the Apocalypse, Bowmasters. We beat Shoulder the Apocalypse, we beat Bowmasters. Does it matter then? Probably not. I'll take the Bowmasters. My opponent's tapping out for Shouldered. That makes me feel happier. Right, they're cracking that fetch land. Show themselves the door. So, they are very similar to the deck we played earlier. So we don't really want this Bojuka Bog. I would like the Disruptor Flute. The Not of This Worlds are no good, so they can come out. Which means we're probably putting in some Abrupt Decays. And call it a day like this. I think this matchup looked pretty good before. I will not keep this hand. I will keep this hand. This is a turn 2 again, isn't it? So if we get rid of 1 Verdant Catacombs. So if we get Thoughtseize, that sucks. Because they take our crop rotation. But I think we can't really turn down a turn 2 hand here. We even have an answer for a Wasteland now. So we get Lotus Petal. We have to crack the other Lotus Petal here. We crack this. We're going to see a Dark Ritual into Opposition Agent, aren't we? This is pretty good. An Opposition Agent. So we could crop rotate now and just turn our Thespian stage into a Dark Depths, because that's the harder part of our combo to hit. I don't like it, but I think that's correct. Circuit Extraction on Thespian stage. Okay, so we need to draw a Vampire Hexmage. That is going to make things a touch trickier. So now they get to take out a Bayou from our deck, most likely. And then we'll cast this Pithing Needle. Naming Wasteland. And we'll see. So they also got to see our hand when that happened as well. So they crack their Marsh Plat, so we don't name it. But I don't think we're in a position where we can name it. Our Ghost Quarter does not produce black mana. We can't do the trick where we hit our own land because the opposition agent is around. Okay. It's going to be a little bit of an uphill struggle here. A Doughty Voidwalker. Doubling their clock is not really what I wanted to see. This isn't the one, is it? I guess that means we're playing the Ghost Quarter out. If our opponent plays an Urborg of their own, which seems very unlikely, but they could have one in just to turn their wastelands into Urborg sometimes, into swamp sometimes. But I expect to see 0 to 1 in their deck. But if they play an Urborg, then that helps us out. Thoughtseize. Sure, you can take our Elvish Spirit Guide. We should have exiled that because they can get it back with Doughty Voidwalker. Not that it matters. There's a wasteland. We don't care about that. Our opponent might have Powder Keg to take out our Pithing Needle, but I doubt it. Give us a black source. An Abrupt Decay. Well, well, well. We're close to killing this opposition agent. But we've still got some other hoops we need to jump through here. We haven't got a lot of time left in this game. Thoughtseize. Be my guest, opponent. Enjoy. I don't think we have anything that gets us out of this spot we find ourselves in. Okay. Opposition agent. Getting me good there. Do you want this last Abrupt Decay? And what will we take out for it? One of the Once Upon a Times? Alright, let's try this. This hand doesn't do what I need it to do. We have stronger hands. This hand is pretty strong. I will keep this. So we have... One of these cards has got to go. It's probably just the crop rotation, to be honest. So this probably gets us... I think this gets us a Bayou, and then we duress our opponent. Shoulder's Edict, Dark Ritual, Opposition Agent. I think they're going to want to get the Opposition Agent down rather than wastelanding us here. Dark Ritual. So by being on the play, we just get to ignore the Opposition Agent here. In the Wasteland. So from our perspective right now, our opponent has nothing going on. So they've played this so they can get a Surveil going. They get to crack for 3, that's not really a big deal. So we play this out. We have one mana, 2 mana. So we do get to duress our opponent once more as well. Nothing over there. So they're going to get some Surveil action. They could, like, put it on top to bluff that they've got a Shoulder's Edict here. They put it into the graveyard. Like, I think we're still going anyway. But that's an interesting bluff that you could do. Bloodstained Mire. How many sorcery speed edict effects do I think our opponent has in their deck? I think we're just going to take the damage and make our guy end step. Is your one mystery card good enough? We got the GGs in chat. Okay. So a pretty nice bread and butter 4-1. The only deck that smashed us up was the Esper matchup. They did kind of make a little bit of a mistake in game 1. I think we still are odds on to win that one because of what was in our hand. But our opponent did make a mistake that helped us out. But then obviously you saw game 2, they had everything. And game 3, they had everything because their deck just has so many ways of interacting with us. But yeah, deck is very solid. I think it's relatively well positioned right now. And the Disruptor Flute was pretty good today. It was quite flexible. Not having like another Pithing Needle that can also sometimes stop Swords to Plowshares is pretty good. The Duress instead of Inquisition did cost us today. We very nearly lost to Delver because of it. Obviously, we still won that matchup because that matchup is very good. But there are definitely ways it could have broken that we didn't. But I still think it's right to have the Duress because we're already pretty good against that matchup anyway. So let's have a quick look at where the format lies and then we'll see why I think Turbodepths is good. So let's have a look. This is last 30 days. Let's put it to last 14 days. So Oops all spells. We have main deck Graveyard Hate. So this matchup is pretty coin flippy, to be honest. We're fast enough to race their pivot plans quite often. and we can really just sort of get things done against it quite nicely. Red Stompy is a very good matchup. Grixis, Temur, Izzet Delver, all these matchups are very, very good for us though. Dimir Reanimator is pretty good for us. It's certainly better than Blue-Black Tempo, and the Grixis Tempo is not the same as Blue-Black Tempo. Even though it's very similar, the mana base is a little bit different, which means it doesn't get to have the same tools that a Blue-Black deck does. Jeskai Control is obviously horrible, Reanimator is alright, Beanstalk Control is horrible, Nadu is horrible, Breakfast is horrible, Painter is good, Sneak and Show is good. So as you can see, like of the top few decks, if you're looking at the numbers here, so, you know, like 5.8, 6%, 7.5, like lots of tempo at the moment, which is exactly where our deck thrives. There are a few little scary ones like the Jeskai and the Beanstalk and the Nadus kicking around. But again, they're not super high percentages. So we're in a pretty good spot. Also, you're not seeing things like lands and Death and Taxes on that list, which is very helpful for us because those are not great matchups. So I do like this deck quite a lot. I think it is very effective. We have a proactive game plan. Sometimes we can do this as early as turn 1. So our opponent has to usually react to what we're doing, which means that even in an open meta, we can just have a plan that can get there a bunch of times. And I do quite like the Disruptor Flute in here, just as the sort of catch-all card that can maybe, you know, double up on Pithing Needle or double up on Not of This World. It's flexible. 2 mana is a lot, but it is flexible because obviously this is 0 and this is 1. So that's quite a difference in mana values. But I think, you know, having a turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Disruptor Flute is also a fine curve to have as well. And then you go off on turn 3. So yeah, big fan of this deck. This is obviously the deck I play the most in paper. And if you are interested in learning more about this deck, please, please, please check out my Patreon. I have a guide to budget version on this. I have a free budget Turbodepths guide on there, as well as in the upper tiers, there is a massive long guide that gets updated every month. And you can obviously just shoot me some questions in the comments or over my Discord if you want to know more about this deck or you want some pointers. All right, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.